And do we have, it looks like we have quorum, right? So looks like we can get started. In that case, I will call to order the Albany Arts Committee meeting for Monday, April the 11th. And if I could ask the Vice Chair, Member Szymanski, would you mind reading the land acknowledgement?
I think you're still muted.
There I go. Okay, now I'm here. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated villages of LaShawn. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to the indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
Great. Thank you, Member Szymanski. And Keenan, can I turn it over to you to take roll?
Yeah, of course. Chair Gatch.
Here.
Member Bowers. Absent. Member Bergman.
Here.
Member Goodman.
Here.
Member Szymanski.
Here.
And Member Raxel. You may be muted. I believe it's *6 to unmute yourself. All right, well, I'm going to have to say absent then.
No, I'm still here.
Okay, we got you.
Gee,
Okay.
that took 3 *6s to work.
Well, we can hear you now, so we're good.
Good, good, good.
Great. Well, we have quorum. So our meeting is now in session, and that brings us already to agenda item number 2, which is the approval of minutes. Do we have a motion to approve last week's minutes?
I motion that we approve the minutes for last month, excuse me,
Sorry, yes, last month.
last meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And Keenan, would you mind taking the vote then?
Sure. Chair Gatch,
Yes.
Member Bergman,
Yes.
Member Goodman,
Yes.
Member Szymanski,
Yes.
and Member Raxel.
Yes,
Great. The motion passes and the minutes are approved. Agenda item number 3 is public comment. And as a reminder, this is public comment for anyone who wants to address the committee on an item that is not on the agenda. So each speaker is limited to up to 3 minutes. And Keenan, do we have any public comment at this time?
We do not have any public comments at this time.
Okay. Then that will move us to agenda item number 4, which is announcements from staff or committee members. And again, these are non-agenda items for tonight. Any announcements from staff?
Yeah, I have announcements. So we are in the process with the artist agreements for the sculpture loan program. We have received one of them back, and that is supposed to be taking place starting May 1st. And that is going to be the location on Masonic and Solano. So that'll be the first sculpture put up. The other artist agreement, the artist is working on the transportation as well as the setup process, and we are looking closer to the second week of May to start that up. But we will definitely keep everybody updated with that date as soon as it has been set.
And are there any updates on the mural? The mural project?
Which the Justice mural?
Yeah, not the Albany Creative Justice Project, the other mural where we were in contact with the
one that
artist.
yes. The one that is in public.
At this time, staff does not have any updates for that.
Oh shoot.
Sorry, which mural project is that?
I think they're talking about the one that was on San Pablo that got stopped for COVID. Is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yeah, that was the one. And I'm sorry that I'm also blanking on the official name for that mural.
It was a diversity mural, wasn't
it? Yes, but again.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will check back with staff on that. Any other announcements from staff?
No other announcements.
Nope,
Okay.
nope.
Any announcements from committee members?
No.
I have an announcement. I'm feeling a little sleepy today because I had a very busy weekend racing my soapbox car with at the SF MoMA Soapbox Derby yesterday.
Oh yay!
And brought home a very lovely trophy from the event as well. So forgive me if I'm not fully on my game tonight, as I'm still recovering from the blur of speed and the rush of the race.
That's great.
Was that a first place trophy?
It is not a first place trophy.
Oh.
It was a trophy made by Andy Diaz Hope, a San Francisco-based artist. And the category that I won was for most illusory. I had a very illusionistic entry into the race.
Very good.
1 minute you're there, the next minute you're not, right? That's how fast you were.
There was definitely a bit of a magic act, for sure.
Yeah. Your specialty, right?
But I wanted to just share that and put that out there. If there's no other announcements, our next agenda item is for presentations. And Keenan, do we have any presentations for this evening?
We do not have any presentations.
Okay. Then that puts us full on into the thick of things with agenda item number 6, which is discussion of possible action items on matters related to the following. 6.1 is the Albany Creative Justice Art Project. 6.2 is the Poet Laureate Program. 6.3 is the Community Center Foyer Gallery. 6.4 are subcommittee reports, if there are any tonight. And 6.5 is a discussion on the Art in Public Places Ordinance. We will begin with 6.1, which is the Albany Creative Justice Art Project. And the latest that I have on that, and Keenan, you can jump in and correct me, but the latest I have on that is that we did in fact get more submissions. We have, as I understand it, 12 submissions. And I believe that means that the next phase of this is that we will have to assemble a separate group of jurors to review those submissions and make a recommendation based on those submissions back to the committee. Based on that, the committee will then decide whether or not to advance the proposal to the city council for approval. And if it's approved by City Council, then it's approved. And as a reminder, the funding is already approved for this project. So hopefully we have some good submissions. Keenan has gone ahead and assembled those submissions and sent them out this afternoon to the subcommittee, which consists of both myself and member Szymanski. I have not yet had a chance to look those over, so I can't say much about them, but we will look them over. Member Szymanski and I will meet with Keenan to discuss what the official process for jury selection is, and we will move forward from there. Keenan, do you have anything to add at this time, or any corrections to anything that I just said?
No, I'll have to reiterate, because of the extended deadline, we did almost double the submissions that we received. So I think on that end, it was a good idea to extend it. But yes, the next process would be the panel selection to go over all these applications and go from there. And like Chair Gatch said, they will bring it back to the committee as with a recommendation, and the committee will make that final decision.
Great.
Keenan, does the committee have people from the community on this jury? Or is it just from this committee?
Are you talking about the panel or?
Yes, the panel, I'm sorry. Yes, the panel.
So the panel is decided with the committee in perspective, as well as appointees that staff could also help out with.
Okay.
But yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I think
We can get particulars later. I just wondered if it was bigger.
yeah, the short answer is that we'll have to meet to have a discussion as to the number of committee members, but generally speaking, we want to make sure that there are some Albany voices represented on the committee. We want to make sure that there's expertise represented on the committee. So we'll be reaching out to artists and curators and arts professionals that are working specifically in this field, as well as interested members from the community. And I believe there is also a process for applying to be on that jury.
Okay.
On that panel. And again, I'll have to clarify that with Keenan when we meet in terms of what the actual protocols for assembling the panel are. If you're wondering if the other question that's lingering out there is why don't we already have a panel? Well, we don't want to impose on anyone's time in terms of creating a panel if we didn't have the submissions necessary. If we were going to extend the deadline again, we wanted to make sure that we hadn't already asked people to make a commitment to meet as a panel if we didn't have submissions to give them. So we will clarify the proper steps forward, and then we'll both be soliciting people to be on that panel, as well as I think an open application process.
Is there a deadline for the decision?
I don't think we have a deadline for a decision. Yeah, I don't know that we do specifically, but sooner rather than later is my preference.
Of course, yes. I mean, it's already set, so we should move.
Yeah. But I do think it's pretty exciting that we have a good chunk more submissions and that we can move forward with the jury process.
I think so too.
This section is for questions from the committee. So if any other committee members have questions, they can pose them now, and then we will get commentary. If there's public comment, we can respond to any public comment, and then there's a final discussion. And then if there's any action items, we can vote on those action items. So one of those action items potentially could also be a deadline if we wanted to propose a deadline.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from committee members?
No.
Okay. And Keenan, do we have any public comment at this time?
We have no public comment at this time.
Okay. So it comes back to committee. Are there any final comments from the committee? Okay, then we will move to agenda item 6.2, which is the Poet Laureate program. So I believe that's over to you, Member Goodman.
Yes, I have an update on that. Member Bergman and I are the two members of this subcommittee. We only got one submission, so we would like to extend the deadline. And I would suggest we extend it to May 31st, which is 6 weeks basically, to allow us to do some additional outreach to the poetry community. This is not an evaluation of the application we have. It's simply that we only have one application, and I think we would like to have a larger pool of people to draw from. And for the same reason that you just mentioned, Chair Gotch, we also need a selection committee, but we haven't set about to organize one because we really don't know exactly when we need them. So we will deal with that as time goes on, as we get closer to the deadline. Member Bergman, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's I'm not sure. I made an effort to get the attention of some grad students who are in Albany Village, and one of the recommendation that came with the one application was from one of the graduate students in Spanish and Portuguese. So our grad assistant reached out to the students at my instruction. He said, please distribute this. And one of the grad students reached out to someone she knows who's a poet. So it did work to try to get that word out to a specific group, but I don't know how we can get more.
Well, I know some of I guess I know a few of the active poets, so I think I'll put
Good.
the word out to them.
Yeah.
And I just want to emphasize that this is not an evaluation of the application we got. It's simply say we only got one, and we'd like to see more.
Yeah.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Okay, so could Chair Gotch, could you call for a motion on the extension, or I guess you need?
Sure. One. So we're still in questions. There may be public comment as well, but just one question that I had in terms of I think reaching out to grad students is a really great idea. I'm wondering if maybe that's best done through some of their program chairs as well. That word may spread that way, or possibly posting at UC Village, something along those lines. That might be a way to reach it. Also, I don't know if this has been done or not, but possibly posting on something like Nextdoor. As well. Seems like there's an active Albany presence there.
Yeah, I have a list of places now that I'll get the word out.
Great. Are there any other questions from committee? Okay. Are there any public comments?
Yes, we have one public comment.
Okay. Great. The public comment is for 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening, Chair. How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
How are you, Jeremiah?
So, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. So, I recently was brought to my attention that there's a youth poet laureate for Alameda County Library, and I'm just wondering, right here, this agenda item just says poet laureate program, and I'm just wondering if the youth poet laureate is part of the poet laureate program. And then when we talk about poet laureate program in general, maybe we could specify the differences between youth and adults. Oh, you know what? I just got an idea. Could we make a senior citizen poet laureate, an adult poet laureate, and a youth poet laureate? I know I'm trying to do too much at once. I do apologize, but I think that could be good. I mean, right now we just have one. It'd be great, a senior citizen poet laureate. You could get the senior citizens of Albany involved. The adult one, possibly UC Village. I don't know. I think youth could be. I think I saw online it was 18 to 25. And the other thing that's going through my mind right now is I think the poet laureate is paid. I mean, we're talking about money. So it might be difficult to pay very youth, I don't know, under 18. An under 18 poet laureate. I don't know. I'm just going all out right now on this agenda item. I think we could have a senior citizen poet laureate, an adult, and the youth, and a very young. So I don't know. That's what I'm giving a shout out for. And then maybe if you can answer the question if the youth poet laureate Alameda County Library program is part of this Albany one. And just clarify, I know I'm asking a lot of questions. Can you just clarify if this poet laureate program is specifically like the city of Albany poet laureate, or is it an Alameda County poet laureate? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Oh, go ahead, member.
Can I answer that one question? It has nothing to do with the Alameda County Youth Poet Laureate. This is strictly a City of Albany Poet Laureate position.
Okay. And Keenan, do we have any other public comment?
No other public comment at this time.
Okay. So it comes back to committee for any, is there any additional discussion or motions? I know, Member Goodman, you want to make a motion to extend the deadline?
Yes, I move to extend the deadline to May 31st.
Okay. Do we have a second for that?
I second.
Okay, and then Keenan, would you be able to take the vote?
Chair Gatch?
Yes.
Member Bergman?
Yes.
Member Goodman?
Yes.
Member Samatsky?
Yes.
And Member Rexel?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. So the deadline for submissions for the Poet Laureate program has been extended to May 31st. Great. Agenda item 6.3 is the Community Center Foyer Gallery. And yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Keenan, you told me we had 3 submissions, and I wondered if any more came in, or we're just at 3.
We were at 3 when the deadline ended, and we haven't received any more since then.
Okay, 3. So this is the way it looks. We were trying to, well, there is an exhibit there right now. That exhibit will come down the middle of June. And then we don't have any more planned after that. And at this point, we have 3. Now, in the past, all of for the whole year was decided, at one time, which was usually 4. But if we decide right now, it would be 6 because we're making up time. Clearly, 3, as with your committees also, isn't enough to make that kind of judgment. I think, not saying anything about the artwork themselves, but just that you need more to vote on. So we have, I think, a choice here. Usually the exhibits start in January. So we have 2 more before January. We could possibly look at the artists we have and see if we have 2, then we could go forward with that. Or we could just not have any for a while, I guess. Or we can extend the deadline. We still have some time. So we have some choice there, I think. That's really where the point we're at right now. So if you have an idea of what we should do, I think that I've been trying to work on the same thing all of you have, which is how to get the word out more. And I'm wondering also if this can't happen this time, but we have an activities guide that goes to everybody in Albany. Maybe the Arts Committee could have on the next catalog, won't help us now, an Arts Committee's page that everyone in Albany will read and see the opportunities that are offered for Poet Laureate and murals and the gallery and deadlines and such that could just be inserted into that catalog. That seems like a very easy way to do it. I've also seen postings on, you can post for free on Berkeley side, Oakland side, the Albany patch, and I have seen things on there from other cities like El Cerrito and also, of course, Berkeley and Oakland. So we could post on those also, which get a wide range of notice. And then next door is the same kind of thing, because you can get community input that way. So I can do that, and I can extend the deadline, and the next show would go up supposedly the middle of June. So we'd have to, really work hard to get there. It is my understanding that I do not have to assemble a committee. We are the committee that looks at these things that go up in the Foyer gallery. So that is no problem. If we can get a collection of things to look at and I can distribute those things to all of you, then we can just meet and we can look at them together to see what we appreciate. Then I can go visit and talk to the artists at that time. There is some time things here because Peter does the postcards and everything that goes out for that particular thing. I don't know, Keenan, are people at the city ready to have refreshments and stuff again and all of that? I mean, we have to coordinate with the city because they bring out the ladders, they do all that kind of stuff. So there is a time issue. We can't get too close to the middle of June or we won't be able to do it. Also, the artists have to receive their security piece that goes on the back of their artwork so it can be hung in the lobby. All of that takes time. So I would think that, I don't know, a month would be as much as I could do, I think. It would be really hard to go beyond that. So I'm open to what you guys think about this. Yes.
Could I just ask you to, I'm sorry, the timing is just a little unclear to me. The current artist goes through when, and then we don't have anyone lined up for the next round of exhibitions, and the next one is supposed to go from when to when? Is that, and that has not been decided? Is that
Yes.
right?
Well, according to the schedule, it is decided.
Okay,
This particular show that we have up now,
right.
it goes down the 13th of June.
Okay,
And supposedly the next one goes up the 24th of June.
okay,
And so our original deadline was April 1st. But as you can tell, we're at the 11th and we only have 3 submissions.
right.
The normal, or the way it's been done in the past, is it's decided for the January show, and then it's 4 shows for the year. So we're making up time now. We have these extra shows in here now. So I've never been on the committee, so I don't know how long it takes to make these kind of judgments, but you do have to look at the artwork. I do have to go visit them. So
Right, right.
it does take a while.
So so we have 3 applications, and as you say, you're not evaluating any of the artwork, but how many do you think we need in order to get the next? And you're looking for a lineup of how many? We have 2
Well,
for the rest of this year, or 3?
my suggestion right now is that maybe what we do is just put up the next 2 shows.
Right,
And for that, I would hope we get at least 4 or 5, for 2 shows, so we can look at the artworks. And then go back to the regular schedule where we have a new deadline for submissions and begin in January again.
okay. And when you say then the next show, that's the one starting on June 24th.
Yes, yes.
And so currently we don't have anything for that, but we have potential, we have 3, and then you're hoping to get out of those 3 and maybe a couple more, we can pick 2, and then in January we get to start all over again.
That's my suggestion.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
But it's already the 11th. We could maybe do another month, but then we'd be on a fast track.
Would there be any point in having the current artists extend their show by several weeks just to fill the space and give you some more time, or does it not matter if it's empty for a couple weeks?
I don't have experience with that. I don't know how other artists who wanted to be there would feel about that.
I don't think that's ever happened.
I don't think it's ever happened, no. We could, I've tried reaching out a little bit, but no one's really prepared right now to go into the gallery as far as I can tell. But we could reach out to other galleries or something, and maybe they have people who would like to exhibit. Or we could just look at this 3. I'm really at a loss because I don't have the experience to know how many submissions we normally have.
We've had like 10 or 12 sometimes. It's
Yes,
had a lot
that's
of
what I was
chances.
told, that usually you have around 10 to 12 and you pick 4.
Yeah. I don't recall ever being in this situation before.
Well, also, we're limited in the gallery, the Foyer gallery, because it's really 2-dimensional art that isn't very big. All right.
Yeah.
So that brings the scope way down, to people who can exhibit in that kind of space. They can be, fairly large, but you can't have a lot of different kinds of works that
Yes.
to exhibit. I have been wondering about that. If, I'm trying to think of ways we can expand our diversity in the gallery, knowing our limitations. But I think there are ways to do that, but that doesn't solve our problem right now.
Well, just as a practical matter, the next, our next meeting is in second Monday in May.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we do get a selection, trying for you to go and check out all the art and then make a selection, get the postcards and everything by June 24th seems pretty unrealistic.
I think it does, yes.
And there's not necessarily nothing's going to happen on June 24th. That there has to be an opening on that day. It wouldn't hurt to take a little more time. I mean, it could be from the 3 that we have, we could pick at least one and get ourselves through, X number of months, and then try and get some more so we could have another meeting but we don't meet in August. So if we don't meet in July, then it would have to be in September.
Well, I could ask Keenan to, prepare and give us the 3 that we have to look at and see how that works out. I don't have a good solution.
Well, I mean, maybe we could look at the 3 and, maybe we'll get lucky and there'll be 3 and maybe there'll only be 1, but, having 1 would at least would give us some breathing room and still enable the gallery to go forward. And
I think also, if you have some submissions, if you have 3 submissions, like Peter is saying, depending on the quality of those submissions, there may be something that we can work with. But I think that initial screening step can happen in the subcommittee with you and Member Bowers. And then if you decide that you want to bring that to committee to make a decision for at least one of those shows, exactly like Peter is saying, that does give us a little more of an extension.
I can do that.
I think part of what we're experiencing is also just the moment that we're in. We're in this kind of general malaise of wondering, like, are we post-COVID? Are we pre-next wave of COVID?
That's right.
I think there's a lot of kind of ambiguity about next steps and planning that I'm certainly seeing as a professor and as an arts professional. And I think we're also feeling that in our respective subcommittees, where we all have proposals out there that we're trying to circulate and get responses to.
Yes, I think that as a group, we can definitely do that if we post in a certain way. And I can certainly talk to the city about including us in the next, I think those activities things come out maybe 4 times a year. So that might be a good idea to inform them.
I think that's we have had pages in the catalog, in the town bulletin, and it'd be great if we could just always have one and then make plans for what's going to be in each one and have it on the editor's desk that they need to fill up that page so that,
I think we can do that.
I think we should do that each time. The city's willing to give us a space. Yeah.
Yes, and I can talk to the patch as well as, or I can submit to the patch in Oakland side and Berkeley side. If we can get kind of a communal thing, I'll just put it on. It's free. All I have to do is put it on there. And I think there's a small fee if you want a little better presentation, but I think it's not that much.
I think that the step for that would be to draft something. And then I think I think it's within the purview of your subcommittee to just submit that directly to Keenan as, for approval. I don't think that has to come back to the arts committee for approval. And I believe most of that language has probably already been written in the initial call for proposals.
Yes, well. I'm sure it has. Yeah.
So it seems like most of that language connected with maybe an image or 2 of the Foyer gallery, or some sort of schedule of events where of the prior openings that have happened, would be enough to send off to another publication.
Okay, so what I hear is that you all feel that this is okay, that that Bowers and I will look at the 3 submissions and we'll see what comes up. If we feel like it's worth putting forward to the whole committee, we will do that and see if we can get at least 1, possibly 2 from those 2. And then I can organize a new deadline for the new year. Does that sound good?
Yes.
That sounds
okay.
good.
Okay, good. Thank you.
We should, if there are any other questions from committee, can ask them now. Otherwise, we should move to public comment. Okay, Keenan, do we have public comment on this agenda item?
Yes, we have one public comment at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, thanks everybody. So, did anybody just get my email? I just sent the Arts Committee at albanyca.org an email with some photos. Anyway, I just sent some photos of the art gallery opening. I just happened to be the right place at the right time to snap some really good photos of the lady, the artist that was setting up. And I got to meet her husband and her baby. And it was really nice. I took some artistic photos. I laid down on the floor and took a really cool angle, and it even shows the name of the painting on there. So I had some fun doing artwork photography. And so I just want to share that with you. And, you know, since we're on this topic, I won't ask too many questions. I'll try to limit it to 3. The lobby, is that 100% the city's property? And maybe this question isn't for this committee. I apologize. Is the lobby 100% the city's property and 0% Alameda County Library? Okay, so we'll just leave that at that. And then a couple other questions. The art gallery, the exhibit, a lot of terms it could be called: art gallery, exhibit, art exhibit. You know, but it is an exhibit. An art gallery is actually like a physical place. So would it be possible to create an exhibit or alternate for the youth? So one time it's for, you know, adults, one time it's for youth, and maybe one time for senior citizens. Or maybe there's more of a way to make this exhibit more diverse in the community, and make it open for, you know, potentially most or all applicants. You know, maybe an artist doesn't have that many paintings and only has half, and another artist only has half. Maybe it could be a shared exhibit. Just some good ideas on potential exhibits in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment, Keenan?
No other public comments. I could just touch up a little bit on that comment, though. So the building does host the recreation department as well as the Alameda County Public Library. They do share the building, and that middle space is also part of the city as well. So,
Keenan, one question that I have for you is, I know this has been something that other committee members have experienced too, that a lot of the correspondence through the Albany Arts Committee email often goes directly to spam folders. Do you know of a way to bypass that?
Staff can look into that. Yeah, we should we can look into that and see if it make sure it doesn't go into spam as well. But we'll look into that and get back to you on that.
Okay. If we have no other public comment, are there any other questions or motions from the committee? Are we able on this agenda item? Are we able to make a motion to direct staff to look into securing a page in the Albany guide that goes out? Can we do that within the context of this agenda item?
I believe so.
Okay, do we have a motion along those lines?
Okay, I motion that we ask the city to include an arts page in the, this is called the community activity book? Guide, activity guide?
Activity guide, right?
Yeah. Do we have a second to that?
I second.
Member Goodman. Okay, and then Keenan, could you take a vote?
Sure, of course. Chair Gatch,
Yes.
Member Bergman,
Yes.
Member Goodman,
Yes.
Member Samatsky,
Yes.
Member Raxall.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Keenan, more homework. That seems like an easy one, though. Hopefully that's an easy ask. Okay, let me. Oops, I have lost the agenda momentarily here. Agenda item 6.4 are subcommittee reports. It looks like Member Bowers is currently the only subcommittee member for the sculpture loan program, but we had an update on that from Keenan at the beginning of the meeting. Do we have a subcommittee report for Fall into Haiku?
Oh, that would be me, and same as last time. We haven't started, so I'll probably have something to report in July.
Okay, and I think this is also you, Peter. If there's a report for the Arts and Economic Development Committee.
Yes. Briefly, I met with Deirdre Green and Jennifer Hanson Romero in I think it was late February, and they are on the analogous subcommittee on the Economic Development Subcommittee in the or Economic Development Committee. And we were just kind of talking about what each of us respectively was doing, and they so we talked around some ideas and what they were interested in, what kinds of things we've been doing, what we've done in the past. It's kind of a general conversation, but they went back and then presented a number of ideas to the Economic Development Committee, and after that, Deirdre sent me a list of what they've been proposed, and I'd like to share that with you now. And I wonder, Keenan, is it possible for me to share my screen?
You should be able to.
Okay. Let me make sure I picked the right screen. Jeez. Okay. Okay. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what Deirdre and Jennifer presented as possible ideas to the committee, and there's just some of the things that they're talking about from their perspective. Utility box art. Deirdre has been following up with some of the various utilities that have these utility boxes around, and she says she has not made too much headway in trying to get a straight answer from them as to whether or not they can be painted. We did discuss this, and apparently other cities do this and are not getting any blowback from the utility company. So we're just not exactly sure why we're finding it so difficult to get to yes with these folks. But this is an idea that we've kicked around our committee even 10, 15 years ago. And it's just a bureaucratic challenge. But anyway, that was one of the ideas. The other thing is a global wings project. You've probably seen these around where people stand in front of what appear to be angel wings and get their picture taken. And apparently, this is extremely popular all around the world. And this was identified as something that relatively easy, inexpensive, and very popular and draws people to places. So this is something I get the impression that that their committee would get behind. Another idea that came up, that's an example of what we're talking about, performance spaces, where we would have open spaces available on a regular basis for, music, poetry, theater, whatever. These just be events that would be done kind of in conjunction with the merchants. So the merchants would be notified, and everybody would be prepared, sort of make a special day out of it. People in the area. This is something that wouldn't necessarily always be in the same place. It could move around. And, Solano Avenue Association has been having a lot more events on the sidewalk now that the stroll is not possible. They've sort of moved it off the side. And so this looks like something that we could do as well. There has been a lot of talk. I guess they are very interested in the city in having a public bathroom, I guess in Lower Solano. And the bathroom design or the mural or something would be a great occasion for public art. So that's been identified. And based on what we know about the Art and Public Places funds, money could conceivably be used for this. It's a permanent structure. And, we already have funded a mural on the bathrooms over in Jules Terrace Park. And this is similar to the sign that's over on Portland and Masonic. Something is spelling out Albany, but in a very artful, playful way. So these are some of the ideas that they were talking about. Like I say, the Wings is popular. They would like to identify some buildings that might be suitable, especially for the Wings. And we had, again, our old discussion. I think this kind of segues into what we're going to be talking about after this, which is the extent to which the Art and Public Places funds and even city funds in general can be used for what might be considered an improvement or at least an embellishment of a privately owned building. Never really have gotten a completely straight answer from the city about what's possible. It sounds like transparency is key and public discussion is key to any of that stuff going forward. But for any of this stuff to happen, particularly if you think about having wings on a building where people are likely to congregate, if we just simply restrict ourselves to buildings that are owned by the city, we're really restricting the potential of the program to have an impact, particularly on the in the commercial centers of the city. So that's it'd be nice to have just a general reaction from the committee tonight to take back to Deirdre and Jennifer to say, yeah, we're on board, and let's continue the discussion and see where this goes. They can certainly lead as far as getting merchant cooperation, fundraising, even public awareness, and I think we have a lot of expertise in managing art projects. So it should be a very symbiotic relationship that if the city is behind it, I think we can do some very nice things over the next couple of years. So that's where we are on that. I will stop my screen sharing.
So Peter, these are ideas that the Economic Committee suggests to us as a collaboration.
Yeah, I guess you might think of it that way. These are ideas that if they came to fruition, they would hope that we would be able to help them actualize. That is to say, we would help them finding an artist. And thinking things through about materials protection, graffiti abatement, and all those sort of things that we've already been through, and they don't know anything about necessarily.
Could you take an idea back to them?
Sure.
Well, I particularly hate the Welcome to Albany sign on Nielsen.
Pardon me?
Welcome to Albany sign on Nielsen across from Safeway.
Yeah.
I just hate it. I mean, that could be another art project, but I like some of them. Definitely.
Yeah.
I have seen a lot of the wings all over when I travel.
Yes.
All kinds of places I've seen those.
Yeah.
And they are very popular. If we could find a building. I keep thinking of that building that's on Santa Fe and Solano. Used to have a hairdresser there, but I think it's a tea shop now. But it kept having graffiti on the one side, then it has that open space. Could be the performance space and the wing wall.
Yeah. And it's catty corner from what used to be Gathering Tribes, and it's now kind of a rug place, I think, and that has another big blank wall facing the intersection.
Yeah.
And the arts master plan has identified a number of key places in Albany that are suitable for public art, or where public art would be good. And I think, in fact, the sign on Nielsen is one of them, because it's the entrance, one of the entries to the city.
Yeah. Right now it's not very attractive.
No. Yeah.
And then I think we had one, I remember when I was teaching at the high school, there was one put up, I'm not sure if it was the arts committee or who put it up, but there was one over on Key Route as you come in from El Cerrito. And it was like two little kids leapfrogging over each other.
Oh, I remember that. And that was a source of some controversy because that was not it wasn't
original art.
Yeah, exactly. It was something you bought out of a catalog. And
Well, it didn't last long because of all the graffiti. So, I mean, their intentions are good that you have to have this collaboration. Otherwise, if you don't get it, the sculpture doesn't last, or whatever you put up doesn't.
Yeah.
I think this is a really good example of where the arts committee can bring in some leadership and to think creatively. I absolutely applaud the idea of collaborating with the economic development subcommittee, but I think in terms of coming up with creative solutions and thinking through what contemporary aesthetics look like, and what a kind of future-leaning vision for Albany as a cultural center might look like, I think that's a key space for the Arts Committee to step into, and that we should really be striving to think outside of the box. And I mean that literally, like in the case of the utility boxes, we were thinking on the box. And there's a lot of the examples, they are, I think it's true that these have like circulation on Instagram and on social media, but they are also already at this point, I think, aesthetically anemic.
I agree. I couldn't agree more.
Are you talking about the boxes or the wings?
Both, actually. Okay. If I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, it's all of them. They're more like these are things that are not new. They've been and we already have an Albany spelled out, don't we?
Yes.
I mean, we don't need another one.
We do, and it's also not particularly popular or well.
It is not. No, I think what the chairman is saying here is that we need original art, and these are kind of not advertisements, but
they are. They're instrumentalizations of art. in a
Yes.
very superficial and cliche manner.
Right. But we could, I mean, with that in mind, what they're trying to do, I can see what they're trying to do. And I agree with them that the leadership here would come, you know, for original art in our community. That would be much more wonderful.
Well, I think there's a kind of a push and pull in these kinds of things. I'm a book publisher, as you may know, and we on the editorial and design side try and come up with new concepts, and we present them to the salespeople, and they hate them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, because where am I going to put this? It doesn't fit with all the other things that we already know about and that are an easy, you know, sell to the bookseller and to the public. And there is always that sort of struggle of, and particularly us being involved in public art. It's not the same as, you know, giving free rein to say an avant-garde artist to explore whatever, unless that was the deal that we made with the artist. Is like, okay, we'll take whatever you get. Something like this needs to be more negotiated. And there are ways, I think, proven by many great composers like Mozart or over the years, where you can work within the confines of accepted convention, accepted scales, and yet nevertheless come up with something that's very, very innovative and fresh. So absolutely. I wouldn't want to write.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't want to write anything off, and I would certainly want to be inclusive in our thinking. That is to say, what can we suggest that is going to sort of bring people in, and you know, not feel like we're challenging them at every turn. I think it's a kind of a delicate balance.
I agree. I don't think we want to immediately shut things down by being critical of them. And I would maybe parse my language and be slightly more diplomatic if we were in a discussion directly with the subcommittee, so as not to hurt any feelings. But I think within the context of this committee, I want to be as direct as possible in terms of what I think. I think that we can do better is ultimately what I'm saying. If the objective of the Economic Development Subcommittee is in fact, and I mean this in an uncynical way, if it is in fact to use art to bring more people into Albany, I do think that there are other strategies that are more interesting than the ones that they're proposing. And some of those we have discussed in the past. The possibility of artist residencies in vacant storefronts, for example. If we think about the kind of events that do have large turnouts of people within Albany and bringing in people from outside of Albany, they are the types of events like Solano Stroll, where we're shutting down a corridor for an event, some sort of event-based thing that's happening, or there is some other draw, like big draw. I don't think people are going to come to Albany to take a photograph in front of Angel Wings. I think people will take photographs in front of Angel Wings. I don't doubt that. But I don't know that draws people in the way that we can think about various events. If we look at, even just the event yesterday that SF MoMA did, it was one of the few large community events that SF MoMA has done outside of the museum space. And it drew literally thousands of people to a part of the city that has typically very low visitor numbers. And that was McLaren Park. And there were a number of people, including park officials, that were saying more people visited McLaren Park yesterday than they've seen in a long time. And that was within a very defined structure for the artist. The artists had very limited instructions about what they could or could not do. But at the same time, it was popular, it was creative. The artists could still bring their own creative vision to it, and it could draw a lot of people out. I'm not saying we have to do that same thing, but I do think that we can think about other solutions that really are going to get people excited. Vallejo does their pirate festival that brings out tons and tons of people. That's kind of outside of the purview of what we're doing here. I don't want to say we should also then do a pirate festival, but I do think that we can, again, that we can really think about resources in Albany, ways of bringing people out that that aren't just mimicking some of the, again, I would say more kind of superficial strategies that we're seeing here.
I think what I can say is that we agree with the Economic Committee to create this community for ourselves as well as for other people that is so wonderful. People want to come here and hang around, right? And there are a million ways to do that, and we can help with that.
Well, I don't think the submission that we got from them is their last word. These are just some ideas that occurred to them, and you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be generating the the sort of cutting edge types of ideas. That's not what that committee is all about. So
Right.
it is a good opportunity. But I think it's just kind of good to remember where they're coming at, where they're coming from, and we have plenty of opportunities to sort of work on our own and not necessarily in collaboration with this other committee. And so we have to think about ideas that are going to excite them as much as they excite us.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's right. I think I think that they're also right in identifying. They've I think there's been previous conversations where they've identified Mural as a as a real driver of creating a visual presence within an economic corridor, and also I think they've also identified it as a way to prevent graffiti or restrict graffiti in the past. And I think there's a lot of evidence to back that up. One of the problems that I think we've faced on the committee that we need to overcome is, we as a committee have approved this past mural that hasn't gone up for over 2 years. So I think I agree with everything that you're saying, Peter. I'm on board with it, and I 100% agree. But I think we need to figure out a way to move these things forward faster also, and to come up with a sort of format or a template where we can enact these, but where it's also, I don't want to spend 2 years trying to line up artists to paint utility boxes if it's going to take 2 years to do something. Like, let's do a mural series. And so in 2 years, 5 murals are going up or 10 murals are going up.
I think everybody would be in favor of that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I think that'll largely take the leader, it'll take this committee to define that and to direct that and take it back to the Economic Development Subcommittee and get them on board. And then I think together we're stronger with taking that forward to the city council and helping to make something like that a priority.
Yes, I agree. If we have the, devil's in the details. And pace of city evolution is geological, so.
Yeah.
But I think we're much better equipped to bring these projects forward and figure out the ins and outs of doing them than they are, just because supposedly that's our area of expertise.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, I will, this is not, there's no conclusion we have to reach this evening. I just wanted to share these ideas, and I'll continue my discussions with Deirdre and Jennifer, and come back to you with more, and maybe we can figure out some way of actually coming up with some some projects, and then some logistical plan for moving them forward.
My vote, just to kind of throw my 2 cents in the hat, if you're going to go back to ideas with them, would be to look at something like an artist in storefronts, and that can be really short-term artist residencies, 1 month at a time, and that can take place in vacant stores, or that can even be collaborations with store owners who are willing to give over their storefront for a month or for 3 weeks, with artists installing on either side of the
That's great, because they'll know the business owners and the building owners. So yes, I will take that idea back.
It's often, as long as you're able to sidestep the liability stuff, it's often fairly appealing for property owners who have vacant locations, because it draws attention to those locations. And it gives a lot of visibility to a vacant location. Sometimes
if they're trying to fill it.
Yeah.
Oh.
And sometimes for business owners as well, if they're trying to draw attention to their business. Some business owners can get a little iffy on feeling like it's going to compromise their branding, their street front, their public face, the biggest part of their public facing presence. But I think there's also ways to find enough business owners and property owners to make an event of it, where for a month people are coming out to see these art installations along.
So your idea might be to have like several in a row, all kind of dressed up by different artists, you mean?
Yeah, typically it's done. Other cities have also done this as well, but the nice thing about it is that the format is more structural than creative, meaning the format is that you're working within the context of a storefront, but the artists themselves are proposing vastly different projects that are taking place within those storefronts. And so it's different from something like the heart sculptures, where everybody gets the same shape and then they're just covering it with a different design. Here I think you see a lot more individual creativity being expressed, and people will come out and they'll walk from store to store, and more than likely they'll come into contact with other businesses on Solano at the same time.
If there are any online examples of this that you could send me, then that would be really useful.
Yep.
to help explain it. And this presumably could be funded by city funds, or
this
economic development.
Definitely gets us into the next agenda.
I just want to say before we go that along with Aaron's idea there, I've seen these same kind of things where also the people in the town would often put art in their front yard or their front window. So it became a community event. You could just go down any street and see art all over the place, whoever wanted to participate. And in the case of private homes, they could put up their own art or their child's art. It doesn't really matter, because with that stimulus of the main business street, as an art corridor, then everybody gets into it. And virtually everywhere you walk, and we're in a small town, they could walk the whole town. It would be nice.
Okay.
But Peter, you are correct in identifying that one of the hiccups is trying to sort out how to work either within the ordinance as it's currently written, or how to expand the ordinance in different ways. And I think there's solutions in both directions for something like this.
Okay. So that's all I have on this particular item.
Okay.
I'll take these thoughts back to Jennifer and Deirdre.
Do we have any other questions from committee before we open it up to public comment? No.
No.
And Keenan, do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comment at this time.
Okay. Any final discussion or motions from the committee? Okay. In that case, sorry, I have to find too many windows open here. Oh, here we go. In that case, we will conclude agenda item 6.4 and move into our final part of agenda item number 6, which is agenda item 6.5, discussion on the Art in Public Places Ordinance. And I think maybe the best place to start this, I don't think we have a point person on this agenda item, although Member Smansky, I believe you requested it.
Yes, I did.
If you want to open up the discussion, you can open up the discussion. Otherwise, Keenan, is it too much to ask of you to pull up the Albany art ordinance?
I actually pulled it up earlier, and honestly, I didn't read it word for word, the whole thing. But one paragraph that's under definitions is they define public artwork may include sculpture, monument, mural, fountains, frescoes, relief, painting, drawing, etching, original print and collage, mosaic, ceramic, weaving, carving, stained glass, wood, metal, plastic, textile, earthworks, digital art, or electronic art. So what they basically say it cannot be is something that's like advertising, graphic art, that's like a store or, a part of a building or something like that. But that's pretty inclusive there, that group of things. The other part of this that I thought you might be interested in, and the whole thing's kind of interesting. This one is Art in Public Places Fund. So if you ask for if it's a private park, it says here, the Finance and Administrative Service Director shall establish and administer an Art in Public Place Fund, which shall be used for the acquisition, installation, improvement, and maintenance of public art features. The fund shall be maintained in a separate account and not commingled with other funds. And then there's a part here that is also about private art on private property, which it says that if the person who allowed the art on their private property wants to remove it, that they have to pay the city back. But I don't know if that's a normal practice. So we've got a lot of things that can include, and seemingly they would pay for those. What they don't have there are things like what we were just talking about. Would you sponsor an event, kind of an annual event, or, what we were just talking about before?
A performance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, or an event like walking, looking at art on Solano, or that could just be ongoing. They might, it seems to me the fund could be used for an ongoing project, like if it was always open for that, like a gallery that runs all the time. That might happen.
So I can fill in maybe some gaps here, because I've also looked into this, and I've also spoken directly with staff and the city attorney on this, so that there is there have been some conversations that have been had, and they've been, I think, fairly productive. When we were trying to establish the call for proposals, for example, for the Albany Creative Justice Project, we were also trying to figure out those nuances of what does it look like if somebody is proposing a process-based work or something more ephemeral, or something that had some performative elements. So the way that it was initially explained to me is that because the fund is what's called an in lieu of fund, or an in lieu of tax, it meant that the city, based on this prior legal case, believed that it is protecting its interests by making sure that any projects that are funded through the Public Art Ordinance are in keeping with the types of projects that a developer could potentially do in lieu of paying that same fee for a development project, because the money for the Arts Committee comes from, specifically for the Public Art Ordinance, comes from those fees. So that means a developer has the option of selecting an artwork for a development project and getting it approved by our committee and city council, or they pay a fee and that goes into the fund. So if I'm summarizing correctly, my understanding from my conversations with the city attorney is that to sort of protect Albany's legal interests, they're a little bit reticent to support projects that might seem less object-based or less physical. So in order to get the Creative Justice Art Project approved, the conversations that we had to do with producing at the end some sort of lasting work that fit within the folds of the ordinance. And within the ordinance itself, we have some ambiguity that's potentially productive ambiguity, meaning within our ordinance, we have things that say like we can fund electronic art and digital art, right? Electronic art as defined within the field, or digital art as defined within the field of contemporary art, does not simply mean something that you plug in. So if you are doing a project that has a lasting web-based component, for example, that is and has been for many, many decades established as being considered digital art. The Walker Art Museum, one of the biggest contemporary art museums in the country, has a huge component of their collection dedicated to artists that have used the web as the medium for their work. These are not artist portfolio websites. These are literally using the internet and hypertext to create works. So within the context of projects that we can support as the committee, the workaround is to think about at some phase of the project, are we producing something that remains? The other question that came up is, how long is long enough?
Yes.
Right, because projects don't always stick around. Sometimes we cite, like with the Artist Loan Project, we're citing works for 2 years, right? So the question comes up with, what does remains mean, right? How long is long enough? There's not an absolutely clear answer to that as of yet, but that's certainly an area that we can think about defining. On the other hand, if we are thinking about really trying to push for an ordinance change, which has come up in the past, as I understand it, from other arts committees, and has been unsuccessful in the past, but is not without possibility or precedence. There are many cities, including neighboring cities, that do have expanded definitions within their own arts ordinances. So their city attorneys and their city councils do not have the same reading as Albany does on that matter. So it doesn't mean necessarily that there is one way and one way only. If I can, one example that I'll share with you is Berkeley's. Berkeley defines quote unquote work of art, and this is a direct quote from their ordinance, is an original work by an artist and includes, but is not limited to, functional art integrated into public improvements, sculpture, monument, mural, painting, drawing, photography, fountain, banner, mosaic, weaving, art glass, multimedia, computer-generated art, electronic and media art, video, earth art, installation art, performance, and time-based works of visual art, and social practice art. So Berkeley has added quite a few elements to their ordinance over the years to kind of keep up with contemporary trends within art practice. If we look at Redwood City says art in public places means any work of art displayed for more than 2 weeks in an open city-owned area on the exterior of any city-owned facility, within any city-owned facility in areas designated as public area, lobbies, or public assembly areas, or on non-city property if the work of art is installed or financed either wholly or in part with city funds or grants procured by the city. So for Redwood City, they're not even explicitly defining what a work of art is. They're more defining it based on where it's cited and whether or not it's funded through the city or not.
Right.
So they're kind of approaching it a little bit differently. El Cerrito says a public art project means the cost for the development, acquisition, and installation of the public art required by this chapter. It shall include the cost for the administration of this public art program. They, I think, in addition, say, let me see if I have it here, including but not limited to sculpture, such as in the round, bas relief, mobile, fountain, kinetic, electronic, or other, in any material or combination of materials, painting, graphic and multimedia, mosaic, crafts, mixed media, and then finally, any other form determined by the Arts and Culture Commission. So they, in some way, empower the Arts Committee to use their expertise to define what is or is not art. And this goes on within the city of El Cerrito to then include performance arts, literary arts, media arts, education, special events, and artist in residence programs, as well as on-site art spaces and cultural facilities. I can go on and on.
Could I just ask a question here?
Yes, please.
I don't think the issue with Albany so much as the definition of art, but it's where the money comes from. And the fact that all the money in the Art in Public Places funds comes from a tax on developers, and that by those court decisions limits the purposes to which the money can be put. If we had money from different places, there'd be no constraints, say, on using performance or any of these ephemeral media, and saying that's part of our, our art definition. So it's, I'm not sure where I know Berkeley, El Cerrito, Redwood City, I don't know where they get their money. That may mean they're not under the same constraints.
That's true in part for Berkeley. But in my conversations with the head of the Berkeley Arts Commission, they are in fact using in lieu of funds
Okay.
in that manner. And
That's interesting. Okay.
yeah, and their read on it from their city attorney is that once a developer gives up that money, they also give up the right to determine how that money gets spent in relation to the arts.
That's right. That's the way it is in a lot of cities.
This is also true of Emeryville as well. And Emeryville actually has a fairly expansive and active arts program, and that actually includes on their city website and in their public arts plan, it includes performative events, as well as literary events, as I understand it.
Great. That's really interesting to know.
So all of that to say, again, it kind of puts us in this position, which I think it doesn't have to be an either or position as well. I think everybody, I don't want to demonize anybody here. I think everybody is working in the best interests of the city and wants to see the best work done and done well. But I think it does put us in the position of either working within the constraints of the current art ordinance, and again, being creative in its interpretation. Like, how do we satisfy the way that is currently constructed, and still manage to support shorter term, performative, ephemeral, process-based events, or simultaneously maybe even look to expand and update the Albany City Ordinance.
I think we really have to try to expand the ordinance. I just think, I mean, you've said in the past, you just keep hitting the same thing. And so I think that, and your point is well taken, art is not what people thought of as art 10, 20, 30, or 40 years ago. It's constantly changing, and we have to adapt to that. I really believe that. I also wonder, and this is kind of a point, I guess, but if you have digital art to display or something like that, do you get to use this money to be able to buy something to show the digital art on?
In my conversations with the city attorney, and again, I hope I'm not putting words into her mouth at all, but my understanding is that the logistics to support an art project don't particularly change if you are buying a giant LED screen to show work versus renting a bulldozer to install work.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, if even in the context of the Creative Justice Art Project, that was a specific question that we hashed out and we discussed, and we were thinking, if the nature of the work requires some process to produce the work, that is all currently within the keeping of the way the ordinance is written, right? So citing the sculpture loan project requires that a crew comes in and pours concrete and does a mold. That process of coming in and pouring the concrete doesn't take 2 years, and we don't require that it takes 2 years. Well, in this case, maybe it almost took that long, but we don't consider that process to be a restricting factor. We understand that the time and the effort and the labor that it takes to do that is necessary to fulfill the final project. So if we are interested in doing these sort of more performative event-based works, if that is part of the process, let's say, to produce some sort of legacy object or lasting component within the city of Albany, then that seems to be in keeping with the ordinance. And there's lots of examples of that with artists working in very process-based ways. One that comes to the top of my head is there's a British artist named Jeremy Deller who did a very well-known and well-regarded piece for the International Documenta Festival in Germany, where he worked with a community to grow and record backyard gardens over a period of, I believe, 10 years. So that was a 10-year project that was very community engaged, that was also very distributed throughout the city. It wasn't one thing in one place, but it ultimately had a duration that lasted longer than our Sculpture Loan Program will last. And in the end, produced this archive of everybody's efforts to kind of build these backyard spaces.
That's great. That's
So-
exactly what we need.
What would be the process for doing this? Would this be us forming, say, a subcommittee, looking at the ordinance, looking at the master plan, deciding maybe to what extent individual paragraphs or even the entire section or the entire ordinance itself, say, needs to be redrawn, and then coming up with a kind of a statement of purpose or a justification for why we're doing that, and then sit down with the city council members or the city attorney and hash out any of the difficulties they might have for that and address those needs, so that we can present something that we're fairly certain then is going to pass legal and administrative muster. Is that what we would have to do?
I think that's correct. I think that's absolutely correct. The concern that you stated earlier, Peter, is the dominant concern, that there's that the city doesn't want to end up in any sort of legal hiccup where they're being challenged by a developer over the use of in lieu funds.
Right.
And we also, it's in our best interest on this committee also, like, to make sure that fund stays strong and healthy, and that we can fund projects through it, and that it's not going into legal fees to fight a frivolous lawsuit like that.
Well, just strategically, and of course we're being recorded and this is public, so just give the game away, right? I mean, it's better for us to propose exactly what it is we want rather than ask the city attorney to say what's possible. And we should say this is what we'd like and do our best to support it with evidence and
I think
documentation.
In my conversations with the city attorney, she's been super. She's been really responsive, and it seems absolutely open to the idea. I mean, we wouldn't have gotten the creative justice proposal approved by city council and the funding for it if the city attorney didn't okay it.
Right. Okay.
Right. So she's on board. She's open to these ideas. But she doesn't, she wants to caution us against being reckless about, how we move forward on it, and that we're not just sort of opening the floodgates and then all of a sudden putting the city in a position where a developer can say, I'm not going to fund an art project, but I'm going to bring in Pete Seeger to do a concert in the lobby of my new building that can only fit 25 of my best friends, and then we'll call it a day.
I'd like to see Pete Seeger do that.
Well, I also think this kind of movement on this would be interesting to all the committees, and to the Economic Committee, to the Social Justice Committee.
That's exactly right.
All of our committees would be interested in this from their own particular perspective, because it will activate community involvement.
That's exactly right.
But the ball is in our court, I guess what you're saying. I mean, to come up with the necessary amendments and documentation, et cetera, so that we can push it forward. And how do you propose doing that? Or what do you want to do?
I do think that compiling examples from other cities seems to be really helpful in helping everybody understand whether they're in a subcommittee or on the city council. I think it was really helpful in the conversation that I had with the city attorney for us both to look over those and try and understand what was being said and what was being done and where, in places where I was misreading it and getting it wrong. But I think the city council hasn't necessarily had those conversations. So, at some level that presentation is going to happen in front of the city council, but as much support that can come from other subcommittees as well, I think will be helpful. But if there is direction from the arts committee itself within potentially drafting, a sample, another version of the ordinance that we would like to see, and then making the case for that and gathering support for that, I think that would go a long way. And again, just to be super clear, I actually don't think, I have not had a conversation with anyone where someone is not already on board. It's more the sort of inertia of how things have been done. And then I think just really considered caution in terms of protecting the city legally and making sure that whatever we do moving forward, that again, it's not something that's being done reckless. So I think as I understand it, what we need to do is as much of the front load as much of the work as possible and put it in front of people and get their approval rather than asking other people to do the work. Staff is overburdened already with a lot of stuff. We don't want to dump this all on Keenan and say, hey, go do all this research on city ordinances and then try and draft something for us to approve. I think we have to do that work. And then we can share it with Keenan and get his take on it, and he can share it with other staff members and get their take on it. And then at that point, when we all agree, then we can bring in the city attorney and get her approval on it, and then it goes in front of the city council for their approval. Keenan, is there anything? Did I get that right? Is there, in terms of that process? Does that sound like an accurate?
Yeah. So I think you hit it right on the button right there. So it is for the arts committee to kind of bring a proposal to the city council for them to make that decision. So I think the way that you mentioned is the way that the arts committee would want to go.
But I mean, presumably before we bring it to the city council, we would want to have some discussion with some of the other committees and see where this fits in with what they're doing. And
bring the whole package.
I mean, Keenan, that's something that you could facilitate with the other committee liaison, right?
I would definitely have to look into that.
Yeah, Peter, the sort of short-winded answer, I'll try to be really quick on this one, is I think we would form a subcommittee to address the city ordinance. It's already on our work plan, so it's definitely within our purview. And then the subcommittee would create an initial draft ordinance, and then the subcommittee could either then solicit input from other subcommittees, which Keenan could help liaise between, or the subcommittee could take it back to the arts committee to approve it outright and then hand it off to staff. But I think it would make sense to write a draft, solicit input from other subcommittees, refine the draft, and then share it with staff and get staff recommendations and staff input.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, I think it'd be good to have a kind of a formal process with trying to think of all of the things that we have to do, and then allow time to give us some milestones to shoot for, so that we can move this along.
Yeah. My personal hope was that we would be further along with the Albany Creative Justice Project, and that depending on what that project looked like, that would also to help kind of grease the gears a little, that we would see the potential from that project, and then we could kind of pivot into this. But maybe it's time to start that process now.
I think we could start it. It's going to be a long process. So we could start gathering our materials together, and we could individually even look over these other from other cities and have our own thoughts put together before we meet. And I think we could probably begin better if we're prepared that way. So we can definitely start individually that way, and then sometime select a date in the future that we could have a subcommittee come together and get something going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm happy to share the notes that I have already.
I think it'd be great.
Do we want to try? I mean, we can have a motion to start a subcommittee if there are people that want to be on the subcommittee tonight.
Well, I motion we start a subcommittee to look at the Art in Public Places Ordinance.
And I should probably back it. Sorry, I should probably back it up. If we don't have any other questions from the committee, we should go first to public comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just as a point of order. Keenan, do we have any public comment at this time?
No public comments at this time.
Okay. So now if there's no other discussion or points of discussion, then Member Szymanski, you can make a motion.
I make a motion to start a subcommittee to look into the Art in Public Places Ordinance.
Well, maybe that motion could be seconded, and then I had not a replacement motion, but
Well, go
in
ahead.
addition to that.
Okay.
Well, maybe before you make that motion, could that language be expanded a little bit so that it includes the maybe not the goal, but because I think we're looking at more than just the Art in Public Places Ordinance, but we're also looking at the master plan and the I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but the way that funds are allocated, and maybe that's covered by looking at the ordinance itself. But
I see what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, just to broaden it, so
Is there a way I can rephrase it? That my motion should include looking at the funds associated with the Art in Public Places Ordinance?
I guess I would say if you want to be specific, to look at the Art in Public Places Ordinance, the Art in Public Places Fund, and the City of Albany Arts Master Plan, and whether they are in need of amendment or revision. I guess that's
what he said.
It seems broad enough. I don't know if I left anything out. I mean, Chair Gotch, is there
I know that almost sounds like the arts committee. I think that's us. We should throw Poet Laureate in there too. I think it'll necessarily require looking at those funds, but personally, I would prefer that the subcommittee stay focused on looking at at amending the ordinance. And then to make a recommendation based on specifically on the ordinance. And I think that will necessarily entail within the subcommittee investigating those other components, and they can report back. But I think it'll help streamline it if we don't overtask the subcommittee and to think about the language in keeping with the PAPP, that we just leave it at addressing the ordinance.
Is that what the PAPP says? It's restricted to the.
I think that's what we wrote.
Maybe we should just borrow the language from whatever's already in there.
Yeah, Keenan, do you happen to have that in front of you?
Let me look at that right now.
What happened?
He's just looking for something.
Oh, thank you.
I don't have it.
Yeah, I might have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
May take me just a little bit to get it.
Yeah, I don't have easy access to it right now.
For the work plan, right?
Let's see here. This one. Okay, I have it.
Oh yeah.
It says,
Do you have it?
yeah. Art in public places ordinance, explore the possibility of updating the definition of public art in art in public places ordinance.
That seems a little limiting.
What would you like to see added?
Hold on a second. Would you read that again?
Sure. This is item number 6 on our work plan, as I see it. It's the Art in Public Places Ordinance, and it says, explore the possibility of updating the definition of public art in Art in Public Places Ordinance.
And I have it on the screen for you as well.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm. That just. I guess that just addresses the definition of public art and doesn't have anything to do with the funding. One might follow from the other, I suppose. If you all feel like
yeah,
that,
it actually does, because the as I recall within it, the funding basically says like as per written in the Art in Public Places Ordinance. So
if you think it's adequate for us to, tackle all the different aspects of it that need to be tackled, then I mean that's fine.
As from the conversations that I've had so far, and this was also with Liam previously, is that what the city and the city attorney work off of is that definition. That definition is sort of, if the work fits within the definition of public art, then the fund can be applied to it. So we even talked about, for example, the Haiku project, about why funding wasn't being used in the context of the Haiku project. And the response that I got was that part of it was a durational aspect, that the duration for the project wasn't long enough, but also that there wasn't a kind of lasting component that easily fit within the current definition of public art. But there are ways, I think, without even amending the ordinance, for example, there are ways to work within the ordinance where we could potentially fund the Haiku project. But it would require leaning more heavily on some of those definitions, like digital art or electronic art.
Well, my only concern is that the subcommittee has the ability to range as far afield as it needs to do in order to accomplish its goal. And if you feel like that language is sufficient, then that's fine. That's my only concern.
I think it would be a huge benefit to the city as a whole and the community as a whole if the definition were changed. I think it opens up a lot of possibilities. It makes things a lot easier for doing some really spectacular art projects within the city. I think that's what it would take.
I agree. So are we good?
Yeah, but that's also to say that it's not impossible. It just requires kind of working within the seams now.
I'm simply talking about giving a charge to the committee and saying, here are the things you can work on, and if that is not limiting, then I don't have a problem with it.
Sure.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
We could approach it a slightly different direction. We can think about it in terms of the aims that we want to achieve. So hypothetically, let's say that all we wanted out of this was to be able to fund event-based work and performance. We could form a subcommittee to change the public art ordinance to allow for funding for performance and event-based artworks. And then they could come back with whatever recommendation.
I guess that's fine as far as it goes, but we don't really know all the different things that we might discover as possibilities. So
exactly,
make a limit.
Exactly right. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, if you feel like, attacking the definition is necessarily going to enable us to expand, the activity of the subcommittee, it will do whatever it needs to be done in order to expand the definition, then I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
No.
It's basic. I mean, at this point, we're basically trying to create a subcommittee to make Albany a vibrant cultural hub by any means necessary.
Well, why don't we? All right. Well, that's the goal of the committee.
Right. Right.
Well, why not just let Member Szymanski's original motion stand then? We'll just say this last 10 minutes have been a complete waste of time.
I think it's still productive. I think you're raising really, really good points. Because we do have to look at the funding. I think we do necessarily have to figure out like where the money is coming from and how it's being used. I think that's part of the conversation. But I also think, and I could be wrong, but my read on it is that I think the end goal is to change the definition of public art and update it to allow for more public art in the city of Albany.
Yeah, I agree. And
I mean, the ordinance says that it's going to pay for public art, right?
Yeah.
So if we expand the definition of public art, then it will be paid for.
Yeah, like I say, if everything falls from that, then that's fine. And we can always amend the goal of the subcommittee later if we feel that we have to. So
right. I mean, it would potentially be a different subcommittee to also seek different streams of funding. Right. That could be another approach. Right. So another approach would be to leave the ordinance as it stands, but to expand the role of the arts committee to fund other projects, kind of like you've been doing already. Right. So.
Well, grudgingly, yeah. I mean, it's
right.
Feeling like they shouldn't have to do this. This should.
I agree.
No.
I agree.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's fine. So why don't we just stick with the first motion then?
Well, then we need a second.
Just to reiterate, Member Samatsky, could you reiterate the motion that you first proposed?
I think I've forgotten it. I propose that we form a subcommittee to reevaluate the, now I even forgot the name of it, the ordinance, the public arts ordinance, and make recommendations to the city council.
I second the motion.
There we go.
And Keenan, will you take a vote, please?
Sure. All right, Chair Gatch,
Yes.
Member Bergman,
Yes.
Member Goodman,
Yes.
Member Samatsky,
Yes.
and Member Raxel.
Yes.
Okay. And now that we have a subcommittee, do we have members of the committee that would like to be on this subcommittee?
I will be on it as long as I don't have to propose anything. No, I want to be on it, honestly.
I think my name is already attached on the work plan.
Yes, I think
So,
Yeah, there you go.
so I would also like to be on it, but be forewarned. My immediate future is very impacted. So, yeah, it'll be at least until the end of the semester when I'm done teaching here, before any real work gets done. But I have already done some work on it, and
Yeah.
I will share those notes with any other members. And this can be more than 2 members. Is there anyone else who wants to be on the subcommittee?
well, come on, Peter. Yeah.
I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by
Okay, no
my
force.
other responsibilities.
I think I'm just gonna CC Peter on everything anyway, and then
There you go.
you don't have to be officially, your name won't be written anywhere.
I'm happy to kibitz, you know.
Great, that's all I ask.
Well, I mean, I think I can be useful in that I think I'm the only person here with the institutional memory, so
I think you're right.
that may be useful. I may even have some old documentation. So I feel free, but I don't want to officially be a member of the committee.
That's good enough for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're in.
And just to tie these things in, yes, Aaron Gatch, your name is on the work plan, but we do have to make a motion if Member Samatsky wants to join the subcommittee as well.
Oh, I move that Member Samansky be added to the subcommittee for addressing the Art and Public Places Ordinance. Do we have
I
a second?
second it. Yeah.
And Keenan, can you take a vote?
Yeah. Chair Gatch,
Yes.
Member Bergman,
Yes.
Member Goodman,
Yes.
Member Samatsky, and Member Raxel.
Yes.
Great. The motion passes. It's never too late to throw your name in the hat if anyone else wants
Please.
to join there. Well, that concludes agenda item 6.5. Agenda item 7 is future agenda items. This is for committee members to request any items. Of course, you can always contact Keenan outside of this meeting up until the week before our next meeting if you want to add anything. Keenan, if you could add the Albany Creative Justice Project in the same context as it appears with possible action items as it is tonight.
Probably add the Economic Development Subcommittee.
And probably the gallery too.
And yeah.
And since this is an agenda item, do we have any public comment?
We have one public comment, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee, for letting me participate in the meeting. I really do appreciate it. I want to make a recommendation for a future agenda item. It's for the possible creation of a City of Albany Youth Poet Laureate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we already have the Poet Laureate program will be on the agenda, so the subcommittee can put that under consideration.
I was not gonna put it on, but seeing that there's a motion, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And okay, I think that's it for future agenda items, unless there's other comments, other discussion from the committee for future agenda items. And if not, that means that our next meeting will be Monday, May 9th at 7 p.m. And that will conclude our meeting for tonight. The meeting is now adjourned.